A staple I do in all interviews in order to start things off is to ask that you elaborate a bit about your work and this particular role for those not familiar with it.
So I have been acting for like 15, 20 years now. And I've done a lot of television, film, theatre. But most recently, the last sort of 5, 10 years, I've been really enjoying gaming. So that's voiceovers or mocap, whichever the job requires. And most recently, I have been playing Zoe in Split Fiction.
In Split Fiction, you provide the performance for Zoe. Could you tell us a bit about the character and the situation she finds herself in?
Zoe is an extrovert, very outgoing, very bubbly, a real zest for life, a writer, and very, very into fantasy in particular. So she's writing lots of fantasy novels, and she is so desperate to get published, and she finds this opportunity right at the beginning of the game. Um, and it turns out to not be quite as she'd hoped, but still an amazing adventure.
When preparing to perform as Zoe, were you given any initial direction in regards to the character, just in terms of an example of prep work to get into the mindset of this particular performance?
So when we first arrived at Hazelight, the very first session, we were given a very brief overview of the plot and the characters. And bear in mind, this is like nearly 4 years ago now, so things changed and adapted as they, you know, discovered new things about the characters. So I got a very, very brief overview. And as time went on, there was more depth to her, which was lovely because initially you sort of meet Zoe and you think, oh God, she can almost err on slightly annoying because she's so like, hi guys. Whereas actually there's a lot of heart in Zoe and there's a lot going on in her mind as well. So I wasn't so much given prep each time. We were sort of given a background, and then we were very fortunate in that the guys at Hazelight were happy for us to sort of mold the character as we went along and bring our own things to it. And obviously, Joseph would always guide us if we were going in the wrong direction. But she wasn't a hard character for me. She was very easy to tune into.
Zoe is the fantasy character. Could you tell us a bit about her affinity for fantasy and how that relates to her motives and her story written world within the game?
I think everyone who enjoys fantasy, whether they admit it or not, there's some escapism in it. It's about being able to kind of leave behind what we might see as sort of a dreary, boring, normal life sometimes, not all the time, and being able to escape into this, unreal world of possibilities where there's dragons and, pixies and elves and all sorts of different things. And we can really, really escape into it without there having to be danger. I mean, obviously there can always be danger, but I think especially with Zoe, the reason she adores it so much is there's no limits on it at all. She's not having to play to real life. If she decides that, I don't want to give any spoilers, but if she decides that an Ice King is going to be a cat, an Ice King is a cat. It's like there's no limits, there's no rules. No one can say, oh, that's not realistic, because we're not dealing with realism. So I think for Zoe, it's that escapism and the unlimited ability to just write whatever she fancies and interpret her stories in any way possible.
Your character becomes many things over the course of Split Fiction. What were your thoughts on being different things other than a person? Say a pig, teeth, or various objects, and did you have a favorite?
I adored this game for that exact reason. It's just no day was the same. And I think my favorite, I mean, not necessarily my favorite that I did, but one of my favorite days was when Kaya was the monkey, because she just went to town on that and absolutely loved it. No, I know. The day that we were Teeth, that was quite fun. Because when you're doing the mocap, every now and again, if they've got it, they'll put on the screen the sort of like rough character that you can see what it looks like. And so we could see that we were these Teeth, and I think Kaya got a bit giddy and was sort of wandering around as Teeth for about 20 minutes, loving life. So yeah, and pigs as well. Pigs. When we did the voiceovers for pigs, at one point we actually had to put apples in our mouths and do that to try and get the right sound. So yeah, it was all kind of crazy. And being a fairy was very cool. All of it was very cool.
So, for a lot of people, they kind of wonder about the process of traditional voice work versus voice work plus mocap. Could you tell us a bit about the behind the scenes, how that kind of works, and what that's like?
So when it's just the voiceover, we're just in a booth, and it's very simple setup. You've just got the mic, you've got some technicians, you've got the director. When you're doing mocap, it's hugely different. You're in a very snazzy, all-in-one Velcro suit with lots and lots of dots on you, which is to pick up the markers to make the character move like the actor. We also had helmets which carry your microphone, and your camera is right in your face here as well, and you've got a light there. So in terms of acting, it's almost, well, it's a lot more challenging because, again, there's no realism there. If you're on a stage, you're acting it out, and it's just you and that other actor. Same with film. Film's even better because you're on the set, you're in the place that you would be actually, if you were that person, that character. Mocap, you are in a blank room, in the volume is what we call the space that we record in, and you have a bright light into your eyes. You have a camera obstructing you, so when you're looking at your actor, you literally see like this, like that. You can't see really a lot of the other person. You can maybe see the eyes, and that's why I think it's so important to get on with the other actors, to be able to connect and act well with them, because you're already limited in what you can see. And it's just a case of adapting to it. But it is really, really fun because it is kind of like playtime when you're a kid. Your imagination has to come into play totally. You have to build this whole world around you. And again, the team would always show us, the rough outline or a mock-up of that level, so we could see sort of what we were working with. And again, they would nudge us if we were heading in the wrong direction. But yeah, so it's a challenge, but it's a really fun challenge doing motion capture.
Zoe is a very upbeat character, in opposition to your co-lead, Mio, is a bit more closed off. It's an interesting juxtaposition that changes over the course of the story. From your perspective, what were your thoughts on the growth of your character over the course of the game, and how the two characters changed their interactions as the story progressed?
I think it's interesting with Zoe because, as I said earlier, when you meet her, all her cards are on the table, it seems. And you think, right, I know what you are, and perhaps you're going to annoy me, or you're a bit too much, or whoa, okay, you're really friendly, or whatever. And I think what you discover as you play the game is that, as with all outgoing people, there's usually a layer that they're keeping to themselves, and that's exactly it with Zoe. And it's hidden very, very deep down, almost a source of shame that she would be devastated if anyone found. But with Mio, as the friendship progresses, she feels more comfortable, and because of the experiences she's going through, is forced to confront those emotions. So I think there's a really lovely growth in her. You can be friends with loads of people, but not actually have that one person to connect with. And I think that perhaps is the case with Zoe at the start. And then with Mio, as Mio starts to open up as well, she has a lovely journey too. They find this real connection, real yin and yang characters that actually work really well together. And I think that is common in life as well.
There's a very dark, traumatic backstory for your character. What were your thoughts on how that was revealed slowly over time, and from your perspective in acting, bring that emotional aspect to the game?
I think it's really nice that you don't get all the answers to Zoe straight away. I think the slow reveal of what happened is a much nicer way to discover someone, much like in life. I mean, there are people that you'll meet and they'll go, this happened to me, that happened to me, and it's like, rah, here's my trauma. Whereas with Zoe, I think it's nice that this sort of really chipper, positive exterior starts to fall away as she realizes she's going to have to confront things that have happened to her. And I think that's a nicer journey to take, because it allows you to sort of see the really deep, the depths of Zoe, really what she's got. And I think when you're presented with that right at the start, it can very quickly get boring. It can get boring talking about, oh, this happened to me, that happened to me, this, and you'd be like, oh god, this again. Whereas we're slowly given these nuggets. Shooting the scene was we actually only shot it twice, I think. The one scene towards the end, spoiler, where she sees her sister, which isn't a spoiler really, is it? It's just kind of a hint. We did 2 takes of that, and it was very intense. And it's always interesting shooting that in mocap as well, because obviously what I'm doing is not exactly what's being represented in the face, even though they used my likeness as well. It was really strange watching that scene back, because I was like, oh, is that what I was doing? But obviously it's not exactly what I was doing. Yeah, it's really interesting doing heavy emotional scenes with mocap, because it's never a like for like representation at the end. But I was proud of it, and I think we did a really good job.
So as you're playing through the game, there's a mix of worlds. There's obviously your character's fantasy and then the sci-fi. From a mocap, a background perspective, what was it like kind of moving from, hey, you're doing fantasy here, hey, you're in a sci-fi world here, and then you're switching in between?
I mean, how you play the game is literally how we shot it. It was nuts to be sort of going from one thing to another. And I think Kaya and I are both similar in that we just turned up and allowed us to we were told what we were going to be doing that day. So today you're riding dragons. Oh, not even today, like in this scene for the next half an hour, you're riding dragons. And then the next minute, it'd be like, right, here's your katana and like, here's your gravity whip and all of this. And I think, again, that sense of playfulness comes in where you're just hopping from one to another. I mean, it's so similar to playing the game when we were acting it. And I think that's fun. It's refreshing. I mean, that job was never boring. Never, ever. Not one day was I bored on that job. There was always something new. We were always trying out something different. It was amazing. I loved it. I loved the switching of the genres.
What's it like doing the smaller bits? Like, for instance, in other games, people are like, they're not saying a lot of lines, but they're sort of dying and they have to be like, ugh, ugh, ugh. Did you have much of that with your character?
Yeah, we had loads. So when we had the voiceover session, there were so many things. So, things that maybe people aren't even taking in, it's more of a subconscious, where we're running and we're out of breath. Like Kaya and I would be there going, all of that. Or, the amount of times we've done death noises and it's like, dying from falling is like, and then it's like, okay, now can you die by being minced? And you're like, it's like all these different noises that you have to be able to do. And actually, I had good training in that, because I did a lot of the Hitman games. And I remember one Monday morning at 9 a.m. thinking, this is the best job in the world, because the first thing they asked me to do was, okay, can you do death via electric chair? And I thought, this job is wild, So yeah, I mean, it's just, I love all of those extra bits, all the bits that you maybe aren't so focused on because you're in gameplay. They're really fun for us to record as well.
Yeah, that's hilarious, because my next question is, I think I've probably run into you within the modern Hitman games. Could you tell us a bit about your roles there?
Imogen Royce, which was fun, kind of cool, kind of edgy. Ludmila was one of my favorites, because that was just so, sassy and over the top and welcome to the island and all of that. And originally she was going to have a thick Russian accent. I was kind of gutted that I didn't get to do the thick Russian accent. But yeah, and Penelope Graves I did as well. And that was a cool one. I love the Hitman world. It's such fun to do. And one of my favorite parts of that job actually wasn't the main parts that I did. It was the civilian. So I'm civilian female 05. And I used to go in, we had some amazing directors attached to that, and they used to just let me loose. They go, okay, we need a phone conversation. So obviously, as you've played, as you're running around, you might pass someone having a conversation on the phone, and they'd go, just improvise this. Just you're really annoyed with your husband. And I get to go, God, darling, I just can't believe you've done this to me, and reel off this ridiculous spiel. Or, it was so much fun. That was a lot of improv and a lot of fun, Hitman.
I see you're attached to Squadron 42. Anything you'd like to tease around that performance?
Well, I don't know what I could say without getting in trouble about that one. What can I say about Squadron 42? It is, I remember one of the days I was filming Squadron 42, and I was sat in my trailer, and we were at a big studios in London, and we're obviously all mocapped up. So again, you've got like the hat on, this like a little sort of skull cap, black skull cap, and you've got this thing really unglamorous. And also when you do mocap, you have dots all over your face so that when you smile, the dots move and they pick up the animation there for your character. So I'm sat outside my trailer, and suddenly the whole cast of Downton Abbey go past in all their corsets and all their like finery, and I was like, Jesus, here I am, like completely like, morning, and they were all here, lovely hoity-toity. So yeah, but I think I was having more fun. So.
When performing the role, were there any particular lines or moments that really stuck out to you, whether that's a behind the scenes moment or from the dialogue?
There's not one in particular that sticks out to me, other than sort of the more dramatic ones maybe towards the end. But what I love are some of Zoe's little golden nuggets that she comes out with. So I think one was cool as a camel. Keep cool as a camel. And it was like when I read that on the script, I was like, who says keep cool as a camel? Zoe says cool as a camel. And I think there are a lot of stuff like that. Again, during gameplay, there'll be random things that Zoe says. And I just used to love the way the writers have done those. And we did a lot of Victor, who used to do the scripts for us for in-game play, there'd be ones where it would just literally be like X, Y, Z, P, 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 F, F. And you'd be like, oh, so that was fun. Those lines are a bit wild.
What's it like to see your voice attached to a game character?
It's very cool. It's very cool, especially because you don't really know the world that you're in until you watch it back, because it's filming for game. And so when you see it, I don't know, it's just really cool. And so, there's a couple of times where I'm like, oh, is that me, with different games? With Zoe, it's definitely me. She's very close to my natural voice anyway. And they did take my likeness as well. Not exactly replica. So that's really weird, is to see, like on the image behind you, I'm like, oh, that's me. It's really odd, because normally in game, I'm completely different look or whatever, and that's really cool. But seeing yourself, I mean, my nieces and nephews are absolutely over the moon and very excited to play. They're actually arguing over who gets to play me, which is quite sweet.
Lastly, I would like to leave a spot for you to say something or go over anything I might have missed during the interview.
I don't know, I guess I just want to say thank you to anyone who's played this game so far, because the feedback has been unreal. And I've done quite a few games. I'm by no means an expert at all, but this feels really special, the reaction to it. And I've had a lot of messages from people saying that they played with their daughter or their son, or they played with their sibling, or I played with my husband or whatever. And that to me is just the best thing. Family's everything to me. So I just love that people are coming together. And I think that's something that Hazelight really excel at, is making games that people can enjoy together without it being too competitive or draining, or too much of a, not challenge, because there are some challenging parts for sure, but they bring people together, and I think that's lovely. So yeah, just a thank you to anyone who's played it and got in touch to say how much they've enjoyed it, because it means a lot. And it was a lot of work, a lot of fun work, but still hard work. So it's really rewarding seeing how much people are loving it.